Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
That did not sound like an owl.
Oh, it's
Matt Moneymaker's team just experienced the most shocking moment of their lives as their calls to Bigfoot received an actual response. What message did Bigfoot send them? Let's dive in. Food coma. It all started with overeating. The night was calm, with a thick canopy of trees overhead, casting shadows across the forest floor. The team had just finished a hearty meal, and everyone agreed they needed to walk it off. It was the perfect excuse to head into the wilderness. They had a plan, one that combined strategy, teamwork, and their shared hope of encountering something extraordinary: Bigfoot. With their equipment ready and spirits high, they split into two groups. Bobo and Jeff decided to stay in a single location, using their skills to mimic animal sounds. Their hope was to draw attention to themselves and entice any nearby creatures to come closer. These calls, they believed, might even catch the interest of a Sasquatch. Meanwhile, Matt, Renee, and Cliff opted for a mobile approach. They had set their sights on a meadow some distance away, an area known for its deer population. It was an ideal location, rich in food sources, with the kind of environment that could easily conceal large animals like Sasquatches.
What is that?
This is interesting.
Yeah.
And let's zoom
really
in on
bright.
that.
That's much bigger than us.
Is that a head and feet and an arm, but really, really wide?
That'd have to be really big.
As the mobile group moved carefully through the forest, they took in their surroundings. The meadow they were headed to wasn't just any open space. It was a place where wildlife thrives. Deer frequently graze there, drawn to the abundance of vegetation. The dense trees surrounding the meadow provided excellent cover for predators, or perhaps even something more elusive. This combination of factors made it the perfect spot for their investigation. Cliff carried a thermal imaging device, a tool that allowed him to detect heat signatures in the dark. It wasn't long before he spotted movement. Two distinct blips appeared on the screen, about 100 to 150 yards away. With excitement mounting, the team focused their attention. A closer look revealed the figures to be deer, calmly grazing under the moonlight. Their graceful movements added to the surreal atmosphere of the night. The group pressed on, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of unusual activity. They noticed something different about this location compared to their previous excursions. There was an unmistakable sense of life all around them. Animals were more active, their presence more noticeable. This was a good sign. It meant the area was thriving, and where there was prey, there was always the possibility of predators.
Cliff, this would be the spot. If I was a Squatch, I'd come down here at night.
The team's confidence grew. If Sasquatches were anywhere nearby, this would be the kind of environment they'd choose. As they walked, Matt shared his thoughts on how Sasquatches might behave in such a place. He explained that these creatures likely had excellent night vision, giving them a significant advantage in the dark. They might spend hours watching deer herds from the edges of the forest, studying their movements and waiting for the perfect opportunity to approach. However, he didn't believe they hunted every night. Instead, he theorized that Sasquatches acted more like shepherds, observing the deer and ensuring they stayed in specific areas. This way, when the Sasquatches needed food, the deer would be nearby, ready to be hunted. The team also speculated about the role this meadow might play for younger Sasquatches. Matt suggested that locations like this could serve as nurseries, or what he jokingly called daycares for young ones.
Renee, this is Matt. We may have one very nearby us right now. We heard a big old thump next to us like something jumped off a log.
The abundance of small prey, such as rodents, frogs, and raccoons, provided a reliable food source for juveniles. Natural barriers, like a nearby moat, offered protection from potential threats, including predators or even domestic dogs. It was easy to imagine young Sasquatches exploring the meadow, learning to forage and hunt in a safe and resource-rich environment. Meanwhile, the adults could range farther afield, hunting larger prey like deer. Matt painted a vivid picture. The big Sasquatches venturing deeper into the forest to take down a deer, while the little ones stayed behind, feasting on frogs and other small creatures. It was an ecosystem perfectly suited to their needs, a balance of safety and sustenance. As they continued their exploration, the sounds of the night grew louder. Frogs croaked in a steady rhythm, their calls echoing through the trees. One of the team members identified the species as bronze and leopard frogs, showcasing their deep understanding of the area's wildlife.
Frog. Oh, those are leopard frogs and bronze frogs. That
The sounds added to the ambience, creating a symphony of nature that underscored the team's sense of anticipation. Back at the stationary group's location, Bobo and Jeff decided it was time to step up their efforts. They prepared to mimic a rabbit in distress, a sound that often attracts predators. The call was haunting, cutting through the stillness of the forest. Everyone listened intently, hoping it might provoke a reaction. When that didn't yield immediate results, they moved on to a deer distress call.
He does make good calls.
This call, too, was executed with skill, its mournful tone blending seamlessly with the natural sounds of the night. Then came the most interesting idea of the evening. Bigfoot responds. Cliff suggested replicating what is known as the Tahoe scream. This high-pitched sound is believed to come from juvenile Sasquatches and might serve as a form of communication. By imitating it, the team hoped to trigger a response from any Sasquatches in the area. The scream echoed through the forest, its eerie tone raising goosebumps. It was a sound unlike any other, one that carried both mystery and potential. Moments later, an unexpected sound broke the silence, a faint howl from the distance. It was barely perceptible, but distinct enough to raise suspicion.
I heard something. Yeah.
Cliff and the team immediately turned their focus toward the direction of the sound. Fascinated, Matt asked the stationary team over the radio if they had made a similar call, but the answer was a definitive no. This response heightened the excitement. If the sound didn't come from their team, what could it have been? Cliff prepared to repeat the Tahoe scream, this time directing it toward the area where the howl originated. The forest once again fell silent as his call resonated through the trees. Then, a new sound emerged. This one was clearer, louder, and undoubtedly unusual. The team exchanged glances, the tension palpable. It didn't sound like an owl or any other known nocturnal animal. The sound was deep and guttural, almost like a response. Excited whispers spread among the team as they debated what they had just heard. The possibility of a Sasquatch being nearby seemed more real than ever. They noted that there was nothing but wilderness between their location and the nearby Trinity River. This isolation, coupled with previous reports of encounters in the area, made it an ideal spot for Sasquatch activity. As the team advanced, the calls continued, growing louder and seemingly closer.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement that's a human or a Sasquatch, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing between here and the river.
One member noted that the sound couldn't be easily classified. It was either human or something entirely different, perhaps even a Sasquatch. They estimated that whatever was making the noise was no more than 200 yards away, an excitingly close distance. Determined to investigate, the group quickly moved toward the origin of the sound. Despite their nerves, curiosity pushed them forward. The forest around them was dense and eerily quiet, except for the occasional rustling of leaves and the unmistakable calls. Their flashlights barely penetrated the darkness as they advanced cautiously. Suddenly, a new sound shattered the stillness, a loud, aggressive vocalization.
What was that?
Holy smokes.
That had a sound to it.
Yeah, what could that be?
Well, I didn't hear it. Tell me.
It was defensive in nature, as though the creature, whatever it was, had noticed their approach and was warning them to stay back. The sound was primal and intimidating, unlike anything they had heard before. Everyone froze, the gravity of the moment sinking in. The team debated whether to press on or retreat, but their resolve to uncover the truth kept them moving forward. Matt pointed out that the area ahead was swampy, with no visible signs of human activity. No lights, no paths, and no evidence of people nearby.
I think Matt's right. I mean, look at this swamp. There's no lights around here. There's no people around here. A Bigfoot probably made those calls.
If the sound didn't come from a person, it strengthened the likelihood that it could be a Sasquatch. The swamp was an ideal hiding spot, remote and undisturbed, providing everything a large creature might need for cover and sustenance. As they neared the swamp, the team's excitement mixed with caution. The calls had stopped momentarily, but the forest felt far from empty. The possibility of coming face to face with the Sasquatch itself hung in the air, thick with tension. Each step brought them closer to the source of the sounds, and with every passing second, the mystery deepened. But as they moved forward, the terrain started to change. What had been a manageable path turned into a flooded stretch of land. Water covered the road ahead, stretching far into the darkness, making it look more like a lake than a trail. No way ahead. The team stopped to figure out what to do next. Some members wanted to push ahead, convinced that the strange sounds they had heard earlier might lead them to a Sasquatch. They were eager to see what was out there and didn't want to turn back now. But Matt, always the voice of reason, spoke up. He pointed out that the water was too deep to cross without special equipment like waders. It wasn't just about determination, it was about safety. Moving forward through the swampy area wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible. Despite their excitement, the team had to admit that Matt was right. The swamp was too big and too deep to navigate without proper gear. But this wasn't just a frustrating obstacle, it felt almost strategic. The team couldn't help but wonder if the Sasquatch might be using this swamp as a natural barrier, something like a castle and moat to keep intruders at bay. It seemed like the perfect spot for something intelligent and cautious to stay hidden.
There's a major swamp in between us and the sounds we heard, so going any further is simply out of the question. And this could be another example of castle and moat behavior, where the Sasquatch is using the swamp to prevent us from pursuing it.
As they stood there at the edge of the swamp, they thought back on everything that had happened earlier in the night. They had heard two very distinct types of sounds. One was a loud yell, and the other was a deep, low grunt. Both noises were unlike anything they had heard before in their many outings. These sounds weren't random, they seemed purposeful, like responses to the team's presence. But as the night went on, it became clear that whatever made those sounds realized the team was made up of humans. Once that happened, the creature, possibly a Sasquatch, seemed to retreat. The team agreed that even young Sasquatches were likely smart enough to avoid further contact with humans once they identified them. The team felt conflicted. They had come so close to something extraordinary, but couldn't continue. They used their radios to update the other group, explaining what they had heard. The howl, in particular, was unforgettable. It sounded almost like a person yelling in the woods, but there were no people in the area. They knew this because they had explored the surrounding wilderness thoroughly. The land between their position and the nearby river was remote and untouched, filled with wildlife but no signs of human activity. This fact made the mysterious sounds even more compelling. If it wasn't a human, what else could it have been? As they stood there, listening carefully, they realized how close they had come to uncovering something amazing. The vocalizations they heard earlier hadn't been far away. Whatever had made those sounds was nearby, just on the other side of the swamp. But without a way to cross, they couldn't investigate further. The dense forest and the swamp created a natural barrier that they simply couldn't overcome that night. Even though they couldn't move forward, the team wasn't ready to leave just yet. They stood in the quiet, hoping to hear one last sound, one more clue to confirm their suspicions.
I gotta see if that's a Sasquatch or not.
I know, but unless you got hip waders on, you're not getting through. I mean, I'm telling you, I want to go back.
The swamp and the forest around them felt alive with mystery. Every rustle of leaves, every distant noise kept them on edge. They couldn't see anything, but the feeling of being watched was hard to ignore. It was as if the wilderness itself was holding onto its secrets, just out of reach. After a while, the team had to accept that their night was coming to an end. They carefully made their way back, their excitement mixed with frustration. They had heard something incredible, something that could very well have been a Sasquatch, but the creature had outsmarted them, retreating to a place they couldn't follow. It was a reminder of how elusive these beings are, always staying one step ahead and using the environment to their advantage. As they walked back to their starting point, the team talked about what they had experienced: the vocalizations, the swamp, the remote location. It all added up to a thrilling encounter, even without a visual confirmation. They knew they had collected valuable evidence in the form of the sounds they heard. While the night hadn't ended with the definitive proof they were hoping for, it was a step closer to solving the mystery of Sasquatch. And for the team, that was more than enough to keep their spirits high and their determination strong for the next expedition. The Patterson-Gimlin Film. The Patterson-Gimlin film, recorded in October 1967, is widely regarded as one of the most famous Sasquatch sightings in history. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, two outdoorsmen and Bigfoot enthusiasts, were exploring Bluff Creek, California, in search of evidence of the elusive creature. While riding horseback, they reportedly encountered a large bipedal ape-like figure covered in dark hair. The creature, which they estimated to be over 7 feet tall, was seen calmly walking along the creek bed before disappearing into the woods. Patterson managed to film the incident using a hand-cranked 16mm camera, resulting in 59.5 seconds of footage that has captivated and divided audiences for decades.
As the heel comes up in the supporting foot, the heel moves somewhat independently of the rest of the foot.
Supporters of the film argue that the creature's movements, muscle definition, and proportions are too complex to be replicated by a person in a costume, especially with the technology available in the 1960s. Critics, however, claim the figure could easily be a hoax, with someone wearing a suit. The FBI's investigation of Sasquatch evidence. In 1976, a prominent Bigfoot researcher, Peter Byrne, contacted the FBI with a peculiar request. Byrne had discovered hair samples and believed they might belong to Sasquatch. He sought the FBI's help in analyzing the samples, hoping to establish definitive proof of the creature's existence. The FBI agreed to examine the evidence in the interest of research and scientific inquiry. However, their findings revealed that the hairs were from a member of the deer family. This result did not deter believers, who argued that the investigation itself showed the government's acknowledgement of Sasquatch as a credible phenomenon. Years later, in 2019, the FBI declassified files related to this investigation, reigniting discussions. This incident exhibits the ongoing curiosity and controversy surrounding Bigfoot, with some interpreting the FBI's involvement as a sign of credibility. The siege at Ape Canyon. One of the most chilling Sasquatch stories comes from the 1924 siege at Ape Canyon. A group of gold prospectors camping near Mount St. Helens in Washington state reported a harrowing experience with multiple ape-like creatures. According to their accounts, the men had been mining for gold during the day when they began noticing large, human-like footprints in the area. One evening, they claimed to have seen a group of creatures watching them from a ridge. Later that night, the creatures allegedly attacked their cabin, throwing rocks and attempting to break in. The men defended themselves using rifles and spent a terrifying night barricaded inside. When they finally escaped, they found large footprints and evidence of a struggle around their camp. This event has been widely debated, with skeptics attributing the activity to bears or other wildlife. However, believers maintain that the creature's behavior and size were unlike any known animals. Searching for Bigfoot. Advancements in technology have fueled new efforts to locate Sasquatch. Researchers now use tools like thermal imaging, drones, and DNA analysis to track potential evidence. Organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, lead expeditions into remote areas where sightings have been reported. One notable expedition took place in the forests of Washington state, where thermal imaging captured a large, heat-emitting figure moving through dense foliage. The figure's height and stride pattern were consistent with descriptions of Sasquatch. While skeptics suggested it could have been a person, the isolated location and unique heat signature raised questions. The case involved DNA analysis. In the 2010, a team led by Dr. Melba Ketchum claimed to have analyzed hair samples allegedly belonging to Bigfoot. They reported that the DNA contained unique markers not found in humans or known animals. While these findings were controversial and criticized for lack of peer review, they highlight the growing use of science in the search for Sasquatch. Moneymaker and Bigfoot. Matt Moneymaker stands as one of the most recognizable figures in the world of Bigfoot research. As the founder of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, and a central figure on the popular TV series Finding Bigfoot, He has played a key role in transforming the search for Sasquatch from a fringe pursuit to a mainstream phenomenon. His passion, perseverance, and dedication have inspired a generation of enthusiasts to explore the mysteries of nature and question the boundaries of science. Moneymaker's journey is rooted in his belief that Sasquatch is a real flesh-and-blood creature. Unlike skeptics who dismiss Bigfoot as folklore or misidentification, Moneymaker advocates for a scientific approach to investigating sightings. His work is driven by the idea that credible witnesses, compelling evidence, and advanced technology could one day prove the existence of these creatures. Through the BFRO, Moneymaker has organized countless expeditions, collected reports from witnesses worldwide, and compiled a detailed database of sightings, making it a go-to resource for researchers and enthusiasts alike. One of the hallmarks of Moneymaker's approach is his commitment to blending scientific methods with first-hand exploration. In finding Bigfoot, he and his team ventured into remote locations, using tools like thermal cameras, sound recorders, and night vision equipment to gather evidence. Their investigations often centered on analyzing vocalizations, studying tracks, and replicating reported behaviors to elicit responses from potential Sasquatch in the area. While skeptics critiqued the show for its lack of definitive proof, it succeeded in reigniting public interest in the mystery and showcasing the dedication of those involved in the search. Moneymaker's belief in Sasquatch is not without challenges. The lack of definitive physical evidence, such as bones or a body, remains the most significant obstacle for researchers. Skeptics often argue that the thousands of reported sightings over the years should have yielded more tangible proof. However, Moneymaker and his peers counter this by pointing to the elusive nature of the creature, its preference for dense remote habitats, and its potential intelligence in avoiding human contact. Beyond the scientific and investigative aspects, Moneymaker's work has highlighted the cultural significance of Bigfoot. For many, the creature represents a connection to the wild, untamed aspects of nature and a reminder of the mysteries that remain unsolved. The stories of Sasquatch often carry themes of respect for the wilderness, curiosity about the unknown, and a recognition of humanity's limited understanding of the natural world. Moneymaker's efforts have preserved these narratives while encouraging a respectful approach to research and exploration. In many ways, Matt embodies the spirit of discovery. His work reminds us that the search for Bigfoot is not just about proving the existence of a creature, but about embracing the wonder and adventure of exploring the unknown.